Good morning and welcome everybody to East Devon District Council's Licensing and Enforcement Committee meeting on the 11th of February 2026. I'm the Chair, Councillor Joe Wibley. Please make sure that all phones are either muted or switched off. I would also like to welcome members of the public and anybody watching online. All councillors have been sent an agenda for today's meeting. We will now start the meeting with a roll call of members present. When you hear your name, please unmute your microphone and confirm that you are present. And please also state whether you have any declarations of interest in items on the agenda and the nature of that interest. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Brian Bailey? No? Oh, thank you. Councillor Barlow?
Present and no declarations that I'm aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bloxham?
Present and no declarations, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bonetta?
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Bruce? No? Councillor Dumper?
Present, Sarah, thank you, and I have no declarations either. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard?
Present and no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Levine?
Present. Just want to declare I walk on the pavement when I can find them.
Councillor O'Leary? No. Councillor Rickson?
Present, and I'd like to declare that I object to people driving on the pavements. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Wibley?
Present and no declarations. Thank you. So are we quorate?
Yes, Chair, we are quorate.
Excellent. Thank you. Agenda item 1, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 19th of November 2025. Does anybody have a comment on the last set of minutes at all? Is any happy to move them and seconded by Councillor Dumper. So all those in favour of accepting those minutes, thank you very much. Giles, could I borrow a pen, please? Thank you. I only have a purple one.
That's perfectly acceptable.
Is it? Oh, okay, fair enough. I'll remember that next time. It's the only one I'm trusted with in school. There we go. Thank you very much.
So let me remove that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. There we go. Cheers. So we now move to agenda item 2. Apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Nicholas, Councillor Ollie Davey, Councillor Westerman, Councillor Maddie Chapman and Councillor Brian Bailey. Do we have any further apologies? No. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other members? Roy, do you have any declarations of interest at all?
I have no declarations, thank you.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 4 is public speaking. We don't have any. Agenda item 5 is matters of urgency. It's not so much a matter of urgency, but I would just like to say that, and I hope the committee will agree that that we send thanks to some of the licensing trade staff in Exmouth and some of the security staff, given their dedication and some of the difficult circumstances they've experienced recently in Exmouth with some of the events that have occurred there. Not things that anybody should have to work through or see. And thank you. We now move to agenda item 6, confidential items, of which there are none. Agenda item 7, the committee update report on the Licensing Act, the Gambling Act and the Taxi and General Licensing from our licensing manager, Mrs. Norsworthy. Mrs. Norsworthy.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an update from the last quarter reporting period, which has been since the last meeting that we had on the 19th of November. So when I refer to the reporting period, it refers to that last period of time. Just very briefly, during the previous reporting period and the time of writing the report, the licensing team received and processed 154 applications. So those included new premises licence applications, variations, transfer, DPS variations, personal licences, reviews, suspension notices issued, temporary event notices, and other miscellaneous licensing applications in respect of Licensing Act 2003. A total of 4 premises of interest were visited during the reporting period. And during the reporting period, we had 1 licensing and enforcement subcommittee hearing for the grant of a premises licence. Applications remain busy. Typically at this time of year, we get a large amount of applications for time-limited premises licences for some of the summer events due to take place across the district. So we're very busy with those. We continue to work closely with our colleagues in environmental health, and officers have been involved dealing with complaints from premises that are causing potential noise nuisance. And we work closely with our police licensing officer, and we have enforcement visits due to take place in Sidmouth as soon as they're arranged, and that will be with the police. We continue to attend the local, the Licensing Victuallers Association group, the LVAs. So we've got 1 in Exmouth and 1 in Axminster, and that keeps up our good working relationship with the licensed trade in both of those areas. So we concluded the summary review of the Licensing Act 2003 Statement of Licensing Policy, and that was adopted by full council on the 10th of December 2025. It's a 5-year statutory policy. However, during the period between the review and the adoption of the policy, new guidance was issued from the government concerning the National Licensing Policy Framework, and we'll have to amend the policy to include that guidance to show that we've taken a note of that guidance. You'll hear from Mr. Staples about the pavement licensing draft policy and outcome of the pavement licence consultation. Lee has got a separate report for you for that. There are currently 28 pavement licences in operation across the district, of which 21 of these licences will be due for renewal in 2026. The current cost for a 2-year pavement licence is £100. So once, if members are minded to adopt the new policy for pavement licensing, we will be looking at the fees and charges for that. Within the report, you can see that there's a capped amount for a new licence, which is £500, and there is a maximum capped amount for renewal, which is £350. Currently, we charge £100. Just moving on to Gambling Act, no further sort of major updates to gambling legislation. However, we have received an application for a new bingo premises licence from Haven Leisure Limited at the Devon Cliffs Holiday Park in Exmouth. So this application is currently in consultation in line with the Gambling Act 2005, with the last date for representation on the 22nd of February. And I've had 2 officers go up and do a site inspection with Haven Leisure Limited to ensure that what they've applied for and what they have there is all in line. So a premises licence check has already been conducted up at Devon Cliffs. Taxi and private hire licensing continue to remain high, with high administration for new drivers, especially new private hire drivers, interestingly. You'll note the table there, so you can just keep an eye on how many taxi driver and private hire drivers and vehicles that we license and operators. We continue to monitor the ranks across the district, mainly in busier areas such as Exmouth. That's where most of the rank action takes place in the district. So just before Christmas, we did have complaints from the taxi trade based in Exmouth regarding the continued unlawful use of the designated taxi rank in Capel Lane in Exmouth. The report is basically members of the public using that designated taxi rank to use the fish and chip premises or to use other sort of fast food outlets on that stretch of road, therefore enabling taxis to be able to go and wait there, which they're legal to do that. I have contacted CCC Civil Enforcement, who've advised me that within the district of East Devon on taxi ranks there is a no waiting rule as opposed to a no stopping rule like there is in Exeter. So they are bound a little bit by what is constituted as waiting, which DCC have advised me it's about 5 minutes. Unfortunately, they don't appear to be able to have the level of staff required to be able to manage that on a regular basis. So we continue to have complaints about it. I have contacted the Highways Department. That was before Christmas, but I'm yet to receive a reply from the Highways Department. But we will continue to monitor the taxi ranks across the district. But I just wanted to draw that to members' attention that it's a continued misuse of a designated taxi rank. We were quite low on revocations, suspensions and refusals, so we issued 2 taxi vehicle suspensions for both vehicles being involved in an accident. So we suspend the licence, so the licence is suspended, so that enables the vehicle to be repaired. Once the repairs are done and we're satisfied that that vehicle meets our compliance levels, then the suspension is lifted. So that's why those 2 vehicles will be suspended. And also as well, I wanted to really draw your attention to the local transport authorities and the licensing of taxis and private hires, which will probably sit well with local government reorganisation. The Department of Transport have launched a consultation to seek feedback on the potential benefits and challenges of making all local transport authorities responsible for taxi and private hire licensing. The consultation follows the publication of the English Devolution White Paper in December 2024. So the consultation is looking at the impact that this would have on local authorities, taxi and private hire businesses, and including passengers as well. You can find a link to the consultation and the devolution white paper, the links to background information contained within the report. As a licensing team, we have been through the consultation, and it was also forwarded to the chair and vice chair of the committee a few weeks to seek their views on it. A lot of the questions in there are mainly financially based questions regarding one-off costs from moving taxi and private hire licensing, say, away from the district council to, I would imagine Devon County has been the local transport authority, if we would make any savings, but there was no direct questions about the operation of how taxis are licensed and drivers and vehicles are licensed and sanctions that we might issue and on compliance and checks and balances. There were no questions about how we manage and administer taxi licensing and private hire licensing. However, it would be for me to ask the committee for a steer on that, on whether you think it is valuable for us to try and reply to the consultation, which would be incredibly difficult because the financial side of it is not our expertise. We hold our hands up to that. However, the Devon Licensing Officers Group will be meeting in March to formulate a Devon-wide response, which is, you may take that view that you are happy with that response rather than an individual response from officers here. The taxi table of maximum fares. So all taxis, when the new fare was approved in October 2025, all those meters should be calibrated now. I think we've got a few still left to go, but most people have had their meters now calibrated to the new taxi fare. We won't be, so at the meeting last year on the 3rd of June, the committee resolved to proceed no further with the drafting of the Hackney Carriage fare setting procedure and to proceed with the review of the Hackney Carriage table of fares using existing methodology, which we did. Hence, we had the agreement in October for the raise in fares. So we will be bringing, so basically, at your next meeting in June 2026, a further review, we will be asking members if you would want to continue us looking at a fare increase framework, or whether you would want us to continue using existing methodology. So that will be presented to you in June 2026, which will be a year after you resolved for us not to take any further action at that point. But we still continue to collect basic data relating to some of the costs associated with a Hackney Carriage, operating a Hackney Carriage in East Devon. And we do that by way of compiling vehicle data through insurance certificates, MOTs, and licensing costs associated with operating a Hackney carriage across the district. Okay, just moving on to street trading consents. So we're getting quite a few applications in, as you might expect, for block consent applications for events coming up in the spring and summer. We will have a public, we are going to start with, we will be doing a public consultation, or that, sorry, we've already done a public consultation, I beg your pardon, for the review of the street trading policy. That ended on the 4th of February. So I will be bringing to the next committee meeting feedback from that consultation and a slight, well, depending on what the outcome is, maybe we might have some amendments to the draft policy, but I'll bring that back to the committee at your meeting in April. And then just finally, it's sad for me to say that we're losing 2 very experienced licensing officers in very close succession. Leslie Barber, who's worked for the council since 2017, will be leaving as she's taking early retirement. So obviously we wish her very well. And also my colleague Lee Staples will be leaving imminently to start a new role with Mid Devon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can I just say a huge, huge, huge thank you to both Leslie and Lee. And I'm sure as a committee we echo that. Really, really sad to see you go. Can we change your mind? Sorry. Okay, so quite a lot to take in there. So the things we need to do, any questions about the report, we do need to give Leslie a steer on the Philippa. I did that yesterday, didn't I? Yeah, I've done it again. We do need to give a steer on the potential transfer of taxi and private hire vehicles consultation, and anything else. So we will go for questions outside of the committee first of all. Councillor Collins, right?
Thank you, Chair. I went to Honiton Town Council meeting last Monday night. A member of the public had wrote in a complaint about trading in the road outside their house. This was a scrap dealer. He had 5 cars parked in Northcote Lane, and he has a transit there loaded up with scrap, washing machines, etc. And these cars have been there for 3 months on a public road. I don't know whether this concerns this committee or not, but the town council were going to pass it on to Devon County. But it is causing a nuisance there. Are people allowed to trade on a road with cars like that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Philippa.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Would you say these vehicles are abandoned, or are they being advertised for sale?
No, they're scrap vehicles. At the moment, the price of scrap is very, very low. It has been for the last 3 or 4 months. I have a scrap van at home, and a dealer happened to come in and he said he would only give £30 for it.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Normally Environment Health can assist with this. So if it's a vehicle, be it a scrapped vehicle or not, if it's currently on the public highway, then Environment Health can deal with that as effectively as an abandoned vehicle, basically, and they've got powers to serve notice on those vehicles and affect their removal from the highway. So if you would wish to refer the Honiton Town Council to Environmental Health, they may well be able to help with that.
He is a registered waste transfer carrier. He's all licensed up for it. And these vehicles seem to be legal. One has a sworn on it, but that is in Lee Close.
a SORN notification only relates to that vehicle being kept off of the public highway though. So if it has a SORN notification and it's being kept on the public highway, my understanding from previously working in environmental health is that environmental health can still deal with that. So regardless of whether this person is registered with the local authority or the environment agency to handle scrap, maintaining those vehicles on the public highway, with them not being taxed, for instance, is something that can mean we can remove the vehicles.
And it isn't traditionally the street trading. It doesn't fall under street trading because he's not. It's an overspill from his business, isn't it? Rather than him having a license to trade it. If it doesn't matter what the conditions are with the car, are that do they belong to him? Are they scrap? If they're not taxed and insured, they shouldn't be on the roads. It's quite simple, isn't it?
It's a tactic normally.
Yeah.
So that local authority come and deal with them because the local authority can issue a notice and then get a scrapper out.
So ironically, potentially they would be removed and scrapped, but probably not there. Right. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Collins. Do we have any questions from members within the committee? We have Marianne. Councillor Rixon, sorry.
Thank you. I was interested in your comment about, because I don't live in Exmouth, so I'm not aware of the problems there, but you were talking about the taxi rank there and the difference between Exeter and Exmouth with no stopping and no waiting. Would there be any implications with changing the designation to match the one in Exeter? What would the benefits be? And what are the drawbacks in terms of getting this done? Is it worth it or not?
That's quite a difficult question. I mean, I think if it was the no stopping, then from my understanding from the manager I spoke to at Devon County Civil Enforcement, is that they can issue a fixed penalty notice fairly quickly, whereas if it's a no waiting area, then they have to give them that however long the period of grace is before they issue a fixed penalty notice. I don't know the procedure of how you would change the rank from a designate from no waiting to no stopping. I would imagine it would be through a traffic regulation order. Amendment to that, which is something that we'd have to discuss with highways. And it was one of the questions I wanted to ask them, but as I said in my report, I'm still waiting for a response from Devon County Highways as to sort of, the misuse of the taxi ranks across the district, in particular that rank in Exmouth.
Thank you very much. Ian, Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. A few questions. So you talk about the quarter we're dealing with started from the last meeting, which was the 19th of November, which I don't think is a quarter. So I just wanted to know when it is. Usually it's a whole month. So is it October, November, December, January? That was my first one. On the pavement licence we're thinking of adopting, when are we hoping that we will adopt it? I know we've got another thing coming up just in a second. And when are you going to be able to put the rates up? Do we have to have another meeting before we could put those rates up? Because otherwise, obviously, if you've got quite a few of these ones that are coming up for renewal now, you're going to miss those fees. Are we going to miss them this year, or is this something that's got to go to full council? So that's the next question. Then on the taxi rank in Exmouth, I just wondered, because I looked at Capel Lane, and it didn't seem to be in the centre of town. It seemed to be on the outskirts. And I just wondered how busy a taxi rank is it? Is it because it's convenient for the taxis to park there for other reasons? And what else have I got? Sorry, and also then on the taxis, the information, when we talked about it before, we were going to ask them to carry on putting in the information, and I just wonder if we've sort of said to them, have we encouraged them in any way to carry on putting in information so that we can change our minds, or we can look at it the way we're going to do the billing in the future, whether we use the I can't remember what we called it.
Guildford method.
Guildford method, that's the one. I couldn't remember. I've got it written down there. And that's it. Thank you.
Have you got all those?
I might have to go back and ask you to refresh my mind. For your first point on the quarter and the reporting period, I normally try and keep it into quarters, but sometimes then I'll go back to the last meeting, but because you already would have had the information up to the last meeting, but I do try and I call it a quarter because it would be October, November, December, and then January, February, March, April, May, June. So make of that what you will. The other point as well, can I just go to, Lee's going to discuss about the pavement licensing, Councillor Barlow. If I could just go to the taxi rank outside the Capel Fish and Chip shop. It is a busy rank. It is the rank that is closest to the train station. The taxi drivers don't have a designated taxi rank in Exmouth at the train station to be able to pick up passengers or visitors coming into Exmouth. So that is their closest rank. I've been out a few times in the evening and taken photographs, and that rank has been massively misused. During the day as well, I know Lee's been out and looked at it in the daytime, and you know, people are still parking in there, not licensed Hackney carriage vehicles. And basically, my point being of trying to raise this to the committee is it is a problem, and it needs to be looked at.
I'm a little, so I think there's a little bit of confusion here because are we talking the one that's outside Capel's Fish and Chip
Yes,
Shops?
sorry.
Yeah, that's not Capel Lane.
Oh, okay.
Right, that is on.
Near the hospital.
Yeah,
Near the
no, that's fine.
hospital.
So
okay.
it is Imperial, do I need to declare an interest because I live on Imperial Road? Probably not. But it's just
yeah,
round
it is
the,
Imperial Road. My apologies, everybody.
yeah, no worries, not a problem. It is, yeah, and it is a problem. It is a problem. So you have, there's been an ongoing problem for several years where we have 2 or 3 takeaways there. The growth of delivery driver services, they all park there. There's various places around they park on the other side of the road as well, like right on the exit to a roundabout. Is very much a Devon County thing because I think it's a much wider problem than just the taxi rank. And, you know, we've spoken, I'm sure, to our local county councillors about it. Because, you know, it's a difficult one because,
I just wonder if we know anyone of any seniority in Devon County Council that could perhaps have a word with someone.
well, I think, you know, we all have to use our local representatives and go through the way that, who do you have in mind?
Well, don't we know the voice leader of Devon County Council? Couldn't you?
I don't think I really don't think it's appropriate for him to be getting involved in little things like this. He would just say, you know, you need to speak to your local representative at a county. Yeah, Marianne.
So you've got the evidence. So there's the evidence. You've actually got photographs of this being flouted. So it's obviously something that they need to pick up.
It's a constant thing. You would, in order to stop it, as things stand at the minute, with the way the road and the taxi rank are set up, as it stands, you would need somebody there 18 hours a day. Tim, is that fair? Because it's a constant thing. Because with the delivery drivers, especially, it's all day. It's not something that you could. Yeah, Tim, Councillor Dumper.
Yes, I just think that there was some time ago, seem to remember while I've been on this committee, there was a proposal that be stopped as a taxi rank entirely and moved away because most of the taxis currently stop at the taxi rank in the Strand. And you've also previously had taxi stops behind the store, near the station. And of course, areas were closed off because of the Marks and Spencer store. So that created some of the issue, but it is a real issue. I mean, many of us in Exmouth go down there in the evening and you will see double parking going on all the time and parking the other side of the roundabout. So I don't think it's anything this apart from shifting the rank, you know, closing it or whatever. I think that will unfortunately go on unless we have more county highway enforcement officers to stop it. And
I do think that it would be perfectly valid for us to try, you know, for you to sort of follow up that if you get the chance to see where we're at with it, though.
Should we as a committee write to Devon County Council Highways?
We, I guess we could do.
and
I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it's kind of more at an operational level at the minute, isn't it? At an officer level. If we don't get any response, maybe next time I think that's a good idea, because this is a huge issue that isn't the taxi rank. And you know, rest assured that now we know that taxi drivers are annoyed about this. You know, I'm in a good position to go to Devon County and
What about an update at the next meeting?
Yeah.
After that, we'll write a letter. So
yeah. So if there's an update, if we get an update for the next meeting on that, see where we are, and if not, we'll write.
there's a couple of other points I'd like to make. One is I am a Hattock representative from this council, and I could actually take it up through Hattock, which I haven't done up till now, if people would like me to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And the other point, the interesting point of the confusion in your report, Philippa, was when it said Capel Lane is, as has been said, on the outskirts of Littleham Ward. There is a fish and chip shop about half a mile or so away, and the confusing thing for us was that we know that AJ's taxis, AJ actually lives in Capel Lane, and I believe there is also, he requires space for his, you know, taxi drivers parking up there as well. So it was quite, and that has been an issue in Exmouth as well. Okay.
Well, I'm sorry for any confusion, councillors. I do apologise. Lee, did you want to come in on the pavement licence questions from Councillor Barlow?
Yes, thank you. Yes, Councillor Barlow, you asked about when the policy could be adopted. We'll clarify that in the report to follow, but essentially it will be within your remit today to adopt that as a policy. In terms of looking at when fees can be amended, the majority of the renewals, as we mentioned, they would fall through September, October, November. So it would be possible potentially to bring a proposal to amend the fees to either your April or July meetings in time to catch the majority of the renewals of those pavement licences.
And one final question, if I'm allowed, Chair. Well, it wasn't, Chair. It's more on the 1.2, the 154 applications, which we get every time. Would it be possible just to let us know, because you've licensed out all the different ones that are included in that, just the numbers? So it'd be interesting to know how many tens we're dealing with, you know, which are, you know, because obviously tens, as you say, are important this time of year. How many taxi ones are in there? You know, it doesn't have to be exact, but just a vague breakdown so that we know sort of what numbers we're talking about, different things.
Sorry, Councillor Barlow, so to clarify, so that section 1.2 relates to all Licensing Act 2003 applications, not all applications that we get in per se across all the different licensing regimes. So did you want the broken down into new, variation, 10s, transfers, very DPSs, to clarify?
I don't know, 154 is one, just a big chunk. Any breakdown would be interesting, just so that we've got something to compare it by. You know, is it mainly tens we're dealing with, or is it other things that you mentioned the list there? I presume that's what, you've got 154 applications, you could break it down into those lists there, even if it's 6 things.
Okay, that's noted.
No, but I don't want to create...
No, it's okay.
Councillor Rixon, did you have a point on what's just been said, or?
It's relating to 2.3.
Okay, is that okay? Can we leave the? I know we've had a discussion about this, but can we wait with the pavement licensing questions till we get to the pavement licensing item? Is that okay? So we're just on the report at the minute. Councillor Dumper, Tim.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise the issue of the proposed change on the where are we? Transferring taxi licensing responsibilities to the local transport authority. Now, we are, of course, in the point of moving the local transport authority from Devon to the combined Devon and Torbay CCA, which I'm told it won't change much in the short term. But the other thing, reading, and I did fairly carefully read some of the material from the Department for Transport on this, and or the DHCLG or whatever, whichever department it came from, and the intention apparently after local government review and so-called devolution is that this responsibility would move on to the so-called strategic authority, i.e. where they intend to put strategic mayors in. My view of that would be, particularly if Devon were to go the route of combining with Dorset, Somerset, Wiltshire and whatever, but even just with Cornwall, it would be taking the local responsibilities away from local consultees, and I think that would be a wrong move, and I very much oppose that idea. So just to say.
So I think while we're having this particular discussion, it's a good time for us to give you a steer as to whether or not you want we want you to go and answer lots of questions that aren't in your remit. But okay, Councillor. Sorry, did you want to respond to that?
Only to say yes, please. If I could have a steer, Chair, that would be great.
Councillor Barlow.
Well, on that point, much as I hear of what's been said, then you know, we are at LGR now, and one way or the other, localisation and local input is going to be less. Yeah, well, it appears so. We don't know exactly what's happening yet, but that's what it would appear of where we're being steered, whether it's for planning, licensing, anything like that. So I don't think you can stop it, and it would make perfect sense to go to the committee that is dealing with other bodies, i.e. other districts' involvement in this, to say what they think, because that's where it's going. I don't think we can stop that. We're not going to exist. So it has to go somewhere, I suppose, and it makes perfect sense to me that it goes to the new unitary, hopefully, rather than, as you say, an even bigger thing, which would give us even less input locally.
So I think in terms of us in this meeting, I would propose, as Philippa has suggested, that because the questions aren't really relevant in terms of the function of a licensing authority, it's more about how it would be transferred, and a lot of the financial questions, I will propose from the chair that we let the Devon licensing group come up with a response to that. I don't think, and especially given that we sadly have 2 members of staff leaving, personally, I don't think giving them what is a potentially large amount of work to do for something that isn't really relevant to their job and the function of the licensing here, I would be happy to let them go and do that through Devon and not do that individually. Is anybody happy to second that, or does anybody have any comments? Yeah, Councillor Dumper.
Yeah, of course. And I looked at those survey questions and I saw the issue of finance, and it wasn't really relevant. And I agree with you, Chair, that I think we should leave that to the Devon group to look at that. My only point was what I saw as centralisation of taxi licensing in the longer term. That was what I was speaking to, really.
And we can make sure that the minutes reflect that and say that, you know, I don't think any of us disagree.
And I do feel that if what was proposed by the government on that was creating the principle that that goes to the Transport Authority. In other words, in the shorter term, that would go to the Devon and Torbay Combined Authority rather than staying here. I oppose that.
Okay, so can we just have it? Yeah. So in terms of like, can we just have a show of hands on whether or not we're happy for that to be how we play this? Cool. There is your steer. Okay. Next question, Yehudi, Councillor Levine.
Oh dear Chair, you've embarrassed me. I've only got a pedestrian question, but it's not about pavement. The new taxi licenses, are they concentrated in Exmouth or have we got new applications throughout the district?
To clarify, Councillor, do you mean like new taxi driver applications? They are all over the district. They're not just concentrated in one area.
That's good to know.
Right, we'll have one final question before we move to agenda item 8. Councillor Barlow.
Sorry, Chair. I just on the staffing, I just wonder if we could have a progress report on how the recruitment is going, and is it recruited? Are we asking, do we get people in to help us with recruitment, or is it just advertised locally, internally? And I just wonder how it's going, and are we going to be all right in the short to medium term with the large amount of TENS licenses that come in this time of year?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so I've completed 2 authority to recruits. One for a full-time licensing officer post, so that has been agreed and approved. Whilst I was sorting that out, I received a resignation from another licensing officer, so immediately I conducted another authority to recruit, and I sent that off to higher management a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still waiting for agreement on that second licensing officer's post, which is a part-time role. It needs to be agreed by at director level, and also it needs to go to the executive leadership team as well to agree. I would like to get both posts onto one advert because that will save the department a lot of money. To advertise and recruit far and wide, which we do with licensing officer roles, so it's not just on the local, I'm not recruiting internally, we're going externally and to areas where it can be through LinkedIn and places like that. That costs about £1,000. So to save the department money, I would like to put both applications on one advert, so I've only got to pay the recruitment costs once. So I've done all my bit in terms of submitting the paperwork. I am waiting for agreement at a higher management level.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder if we should ask the higher management if they could get a wiggle on, because obviously, well, I'm not being funny, it's obviously important, and if that's holding up the first one as well, then, you know, at what stage will we get it? I know it takes usually 3 months for something like that to go through to get it, so that means we're not going to be getting anyone until March, April, May, June at the earliest. So, you know, I think...
So in terms of people's leaving dates and how long this process usually takes, how does that look right now?
Well, we will have to manage without those 2 posts for hopefully a limited period of time. It also means that other officers have got to pick up a bit of extra work. We have got the provision for overtime as well that's available to people. I will come down and do more licensing officer work because I won't have anyone on the team that's struggling. No one will be left to struggle. We will all work together and pull together. And what we have to do, though, is we will have to cut back on things like proactive visits. So we won't be able to sort of say, well, okay, this week we're going to concentrate on premises in Axminster and go and conduct licensing checks, or Exmouth. We won't be able to do that because we will not have the resources to be able to do that because of the amount of work, the administration work that comes to the office every day. Basically, we will do what we can do, and I'm not expecting anyone to break their backs over it. But we are aware of our statutory deadlines, and those will continue to be met as we have to basically keep within the law with things like the Gambling Act and Licensing Act.
Okay, thank you very much. And we all thank you in advance for that because we know it's not going to be easy. Okay, so we'll now move to agenda item 8, the pavement licensing policy. And Mr. Staples will now present a summary of the report. Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this report relates to the draft pavement licensing policy that we brought before you back in July last year. At that point, the committee approved moving to a public consultation. We were very ably assisted in that by the comms team here, who helped us put it onto the website and everything else like that. It was really slick and worked really well. It ran until the 30th of September for a period of 10 weeks. And we got, a really good level of response to that. We got 253 responses to that consultation. So that, like, as I say, the consultation process worked really well. A report summarising the consultation responses received is attached at Appendix B. And essentially, that report shows, broad support for what we're proposing within that policy. It's commented it was well aligned with public and business expectations, provided it's applied transparently. The report breaks down into some more specific details. So it gives some percentages really as well for whether people agree with what was proposed. So overall, 87.3 to 97.2% of people that responded to the consultation agreed with what we were proposing with that policy. And the only exception being question 5 on the consultation document, which was talking about the hours of operation of pavement licences. So even there, the percentage of people that agreed with what we were proposing was just under 70%, actually. So still a high level of approval there. The report gave us some really good feedback from the consultation process. So in terms of general feedback, the first kind of piece of general feedback was that people felt that we needed to keep pavement safe and unobstructive, particularly with reference to wheelchair users, and making sure that we maintain minimum widths for the pavement for people with mobility issues to be able to move around freely. In terms of our responses as officers to that, we felt that the draft policy gave clear information on the requirements to keep pavement safe and unobstructive, and in particular it really clearly signposts to a 2 metre clear space as a minimum, basically, is what we're looking at. So that aligns with the government mobility guidance. The second piece of feedback was around monitoring and enforcement. So consultees were highlighting what they perceived to be weak enforcement and asked for clearer markings and consistent checks where furniture spreads out too far. Essentially, since we've developed this policy, the next strand of work was to develop some enforcement tools. So we've now, again, working with other Devon authorities, we've developed some draft notices that we can serve where there's issues. And actually, we've used the first one of those. So like I said, we've been learning through this process, basically. So we only got given pavement licensing back in 2020. It became a more permanent fixture in 2023, and now we're reacting to that basically as we've gone along. The third piece of kind of general kind of feedback was around risks from unsecured or unstable furniture. And again, we've highlighted here that the policy does kind of mention that furniture's got to be safe and intended for commercial use. We won't accept any kind of domestic style kind of patio type of those dreaded plastic patio chairs or anything like that. And that parasols should be appropriately secured and fixed in place. And lastly, in terms of general feedback, was the feedback on accessibility standards. So there was feedback here emphasising the need to comply with the Equality Act, making sure that there's no obstructions to the pavement areas for disabled people, and making sure there's regular inspections. Again, the draft policy we feel is quite closely aligned with the Equality Act duties of the council. It sets out those minimum widths. It nods to the inclusive mobility guidance that the government produced as well. And we understand the need that we need to go out and do inspections and check on these things. And I think, like I said, that needs balancing with the fees and charges, which we can come back to at a later date, as we've mentioned previously. In terms of question-specific feedback. Like I said, firstly, there was question 3 on the proposed furniture standards. There was comments about allowing flexibility to allow individuality, upcycled furniture and cost-effective options for smaller businesses. We're sensitive to that, we understand that, and we feel like the policy wouldn't prohibit the use of upcycled furniture there, but it's got to be safe and kind of suitable for commercial usage. This isn't, you know, your normal kind of, you know, patio furniture really. And also, we feel that there's enough information within the policy to kind of safeguard the kind of visual aspects of that furniture. So as part of the application process, we require the applicants to provide us with details of the proposed furniture so we can have a look at it. We would normally do site visits as well to go and have a look at sites as well to kind of, so we get an idea of how things work there as well and what would be appropriate. Moving on, question 5 of the consultation dealt with hours of operation. I'd say, like I said, this was the only area of the consultation responses where there was any kind of, you know, sort of, you know, discord really. So what we proposed within the policy and what all of the Devon councils proposed was that the pavement licences would be generally between 10 in the morning and 11 o'clock at night. That's the general kind of remit which we would, and you know, we would consider pavement licence applications. People can still apply for times outside of that, but it would need more careful consideration, I think. So in response to that question, as I said, 69.9% of respondents agreed with that, say 10 until 11 o'clock. But numerous responses cited a need for an earlier time, particularly with cafes and bakeries and places like that. We're mindful of some businesses having a pavement licence being open before 10 o'clock, but again, it's this balance between kind of the commercial needs of the business and protecting the locality, making sure there's not noise and things like that, particularly in residential areas. So on balance, as in response to the consultation responses, I think we would propose a small amendment there. So we would propose bringing that back to 9 AM in the morning, but maintaining 11 o'clock in the evening is the kind of cut-off for generally speaking for pavement licensing. Yeah, so we feel that that's an appropriate sort of balance there. To bring you back to the recommendations there, so the recommendation here is that the Licensing and Enforcement Committee give consideration to that feedback, and your options here, as proposed in the report, would be to either approve the adoption of the draft policy, or you can direct us as officers to make further amendments and to bring that draft policy back at a later date for approval. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you very, very much for that. Councillor Gazzard, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, and it's really nice to see that you had so many responses, which makes a refreshing change. Can I say, first of all, I would support what you say about a 9 AM start. I think that is vital for small, well, you know, refreshment areas. At any rate, it's important that they can get their tables out for 9 o'clock. And I'm really pleased that you mentioned about the 2 metre width as well, because we do have, and sorry to be parochial, but we do have a problem in Exmouth with the width, and not just for people with wheelchairs and other things like that, mobility scooters, but we've got a lot of people that are visually impaired in Exmouth. And, well, as you know, like me, I use at the moment, well, you're supposed to use a long ball cane, and you're supposed to have 2 metres width to be able to do the cane. And we've got a couple in Exmouth on the Strand that don't apply or keep to that rule. And there's one in particular where the tables and chairs are out on the out there, but you haven't got 2 metres on the pavement, so people are having to walk into the road. And with electric cars now, you don't always hear the car come in. So, and that's an extra concern. But yeah, I'm really pleased that you're going to highlight the 2 metre distance. But I think in all, it's an excellent report, and I'll be happy when it comes, Chair, to put it for, recommend it.
I do think that, just going back on that, I do think that the earlier time is sensible, because I think I mean, I would even say 8 maybe, but I do think that you're going to create an awful lot of work for yourself if every application you get for a pavement licence, you're going to have to go through a longer process because they want something that's outside the general remit. I mean, if somebody was to apply and say 8 o'clock and sort of like the general policy says 9, is that going to be a massive amount of work, or are you happy just for that to?
Thanks, Chair. Essentially, we can deal with this under officers' delegated powers, so it's not lots more work as such. I think the key with those timings are that and the messaging to applicants would be this would be where we would generally, consider the appropriate timings to be. So an applicant could put forward timings that aren't within that. So they could apply for 8 o'clock, for instance, as an opening time. But I think the emphasis there would be on the applicant to set out how that's not going to impact on the locality, really. So I think, and the work for the officers would be considering that, really. So we as an example, we have a pavement licence application ongoing at the moment. We've received representations about the width of the pavement there. We've gone out to measure it up ourselves, so we've got our own independent measurements of that. And effectively, because we've received representations, we have a further 2 weeks post the consultation period to determine the application. So we're going to have a discussion about that later on, basically. But we'll take into account the comments received in the round in deciding what we're happy with that, basically. So yeah, the timings are important because I think it gives the general expectation, but applicants can apply outside of that, but they would need to provide evidence to support their application. I think outside of what the policy says is the key.
And if that's officer delegated, then obviously you can do that as you see fit. And okay, no, I'm comfortable actually with that. Then that's fine. Councillor Rickson, Marianne.
I've got 2 questions. One is relating to the huge increase in fees. I understand the reason for this, but how does that compare with other Devon districts? Are we going to be in line with them? And my second question relates to what I referred to earlier flippantly, which is about parking on pavements. I couldn't find the reference that Councillor Gazard mentioned about a 2 metre width. This is obviously for people who are wanting to cater or whatever outside on a pavement. But I live in an area where we don't even have a 2 metre pavement and people use it to park and deliver things. And there's no room at all. You would have to go out in the road. There is no possibility you could squeeze past them at all. And I believe that the law has changed recently and the government has given powers, I don't know whether it's to us or to Devon County Council, with regard to pavement parking. I think this came in January. So I wondered who's responsible for enforcing this? And if it's us, have we actually had occasion to do so?
Thank you, Councillor. So in terms of parking on the pavements, that's not within the scope of this. This relates purely and simply to the setting out of furniture to support businesses for the use of customers, basically having a drink or so, or something to eat, essentially. I don't know who would be responsible for that with parking on the pavements, but yeah, that wouldn't be within the scope of this policy here. We're aware of numerous particularly in some of the seaside towns, with the older kind of developments in East Devon, basically where pavement widths, they're not even a metre essentially. So the starting point with those would be is officers, and we've had numerous conversations where we tell people from the outset, we say, well, I'm really sorry, but we're not going to be going forward with your application because we don't believe the locality is suitable. So what we wouldn't want to do is to grant a pavement licence that's not in accordance with the inclusive mobility guidance from the government. So what that specifies is that generally there should be 2 metres clearance. An absolute minimum, that should be 1.5 metres. So it's something that we're quite mindful of with that. So we would, if there's doubt, we would do a site visit and we would measure up ourselves, such as the application we've got at the moment, because there seems to be a discrepancy between what certain responsible authorities were thinking was the width of the pavement and what the applicant was purporting. So we would always go back and, like I said, effectively we're like the arbitrators of this. But there's been occasions where we told people that an application won't progress. We won't move it to consultation because we know the area and we know that it's not going to be suitable. And what we don't want to do is obstruct that pavement. So great commercially for the business, but if everybody has to go out into the road and it upsets all of the residents in the town and people that are visiting, that's not helping anybody. So we would refuse the application in effect with that. In terms of fees generally, which was the other part of your question across Devon, we are lower, so at £100. I would say that the average is around the £300 mark for an initial application. I believe Torbay are charging the maximum for both, which is £500 for both initial application and renewal. I think the thinking with the £100 when we started is we didn't know the amount of time it was going to take to determine these applications. So it seemed like we would charge, and we were mindful of businesses needing this pavement licenses and wanting to have them and not having a negative impact on business. We've been responsible for this regime for a bit longer now, so we've got a reasonable body of evidence in terms of we've recorded time that it's taken to process applications. So we've got a good handle on what the amount of officer time that is and what our other costs are with that now. So we're in an informed position to adjust those fees. Whereas when we set that £100 initially, it was a guess at that point, but we didn't want to go too high and then prejudice businesses effectively. So it probably will be proposed to go upwards. I wouldn't imagine it would get close to the maximum figure at this point in time, but it will go up.
The only reason I asked was for clarification in case we get pushback. So I thought if we have the evidence, then...
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Barlow, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. I think with what we just talked about, the rates for the cost of it, I think people need to realise the value to the businesses. You know, this is huge that you suddenly have tables and chairs. You're allowed to basically expand your business at a very low cost. Even at £500, that's for it's £250 a year. I mean, it's peanuts in the big scheme of it. So I definitely think we need to make sure we cover our costs, and that isn't the thing. I'm really concerned about this 2 metre rule. I totally agree with the Disability Act and all the rest of it. But 2 metres is huge. I don't think there's a single pavement in Sidmouth, I might be right, that we would have 2 metres. I don't think people even realise how big 2 metres is. You know, it's okay, so there is one area at the very top of the high street, but certainly the ones that have licences now, and I hope there is some wiggle room on behalf of the licensing officers to go down there and say that the area is not pedestrianised, but it's in an area where it's semi-pedestrianised, and there must be some sort of balance. I understand that we have to have rules, but there must be some sort of balance that enables business. When this was done, yes, it was for COVID, but we were hoping that cafe culture, and I think for businesses and town centres, especially in seaside towns now that are struggling to try and compete with foreign holidays and other things, that we do not stop our businesses for the sake of even half a metre. I just think, you know, a wheelchair is average wheelchair. I realise is 6 point. I did look it up. Sorry, 6.225 meters, 0.625, 6.635 of a metre. 900 metre is the standard disability door to get through to make sure there's pavement. I realise you have to have passing either side, but again, usually these are small lengths of pavement that, you know, I just think that at the end of the day, if you do this in Sidmouth, that means that all the ones we have that people enjoy will be removed, and I don't think that's right. I don't think that's what the intention was. So I do hope there is some balance and wiggle room for our officers to say, yes, common sense would say this is acceptable. Thank you.
I think it's fair to say that we can't override the Disability Discrimination Act or the Equality Act to suit a town that's been, you know, the other town's been there and been built in a certain way for a long time. But these rules have been, this guidance has been developed over a long time to make sure that everybody has access and equality to everything that they need to. Having said that, on the specific case of Sidmouth or an area like that, and in terms of existing licences, whether or not they will be under threat by this, can you just clarify that for us, Lee?
There is, like I said, there is some latitude here. So I can think of an example in Sidmouth where it was a premises that already had tables and chairs outside under the previous regime administered by Devon County Council. They reapplied to us. They didn't have the full 2 metres. It was slightly less than that, but it was more than 1.5 metres. So we've gone out and I think what we have to do as officers, we have to go out and look at the locality, look at, by going out and looking at it, the geography of that area will determine whether that's going to be suitable in that area or not. But I think the kind of guide with this would be if it's going to be of benefit to the business and we can see that there's no kind of hazard or issues there, then the kind of position is that we entertain the application. There will be, and there have been examples across Devon, premises that were licensed under the previous regime that have subsequently, with the new guidance and the new national guidance as well, will be told that a pavement licence would no longer be applicable. That will be a scenario that will come up without question, basically. Generally speaking, up to now, we've not had a massive issue with that. Like I said, we have had conversations with people that have never had tables and chairs outside their premises before and said, no, that isn't going to be applicable, but it hasn't been a feature yet. But it probably will come down to it. But I think it's trying to find that balance with the business needs and the mobility, the inclusive mobility guidance is the key with this. And we'd always entertain a conversation with the business, basically, like particularly if they've previously had it. We would try and find, we really would try and find solutions where we can, where we can make something work.
Because I guess as well, if you've had a business that's previously had one and there was an issue with it, you probably would have heard about that by that point, wouldn't you? So, okay. Ian?
Again, just on that point, just for my clarity, if that was the case, that there was a business who has one and that we're now saying you can't have it, do they have a right to appeal, or is that a final no and there is no right to appeal at all on that?
Yeah, there's no statutory right to appeal as such. So there isn't like with some areas of licensing where you would appeal to the magistrate's court or anything like that. It would be for the business to appeal direct to the local authority, basically. So they would appeal, and that appeal would be determined by a senior officer, basically. So the application itself would be dealt with at licensed officer level, and then we've got provision for head of service and the licensing manager to effectively be arbitrators of that.
Or judicially review.
Or judicial review, indeed, which would be for the people with very deep pockets.
Expensive. Us and them.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we do have a proposer to adopt this. We have a seconder, Councillor Dumper or Councillor Levine. I'm not sure who put their hand up first. Whoever's Sarah, you choose.
I think Dumper's done one already. So let's
okay. Okay, so thank you very, very much for that. Can I have a show of hands for all those who are in favour? All those against? And any abstentions? Okay, that's one abstention. Thank you very, very much. I would like to thank everybody for attending. And again, thanks to our soon-to-depart staff, because this will be the last time that you're at a meeting before you go, am I right? Well, thank you very much, Lee. Really appreciate everything that you've done. Goodbye. Struggling for words then, I don't know what's going on.
Especially as he's going to work for Mid Devon.